Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Books Beside My Bed video. For those of you who are new here, I film one of these every week where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. And for those who are very familiar with the series, welcome back. This is my reading week from the 20th until the 26th of October. Along with a whole lot of reading, which I'm really proud of and really excited to talk about, I also started rewatching The Expanse because I found out season 4 is coming back in December, and so I thought that warranted rewatching the series from episode 1. So I'm 3 episodes in. I love the series. It is probably my current favourite TV series, so be prepared to hear a lot more about that in the coming weeks because I really like this show. But anyway, into my reading. This week I read 7 books. 5 were adult books, there was 1 new adult book, and there was 1 YA book. I read a total of 2,507 pages, and my yearly reading total is up to 314 books. The first book that I read this week is Archangel's War by Nalini Singh. This is book 12 in the Guild Hunters series. I am really happy to say that I'm currently up to date with this series. I am currently waiting for my Bay Crate Archangel's War hangover box, which will have another copy of this book in it, but it will be the US mass market paperback. But I have all of the books so far, well, all of the books that I currently own in the series are in this format with these covers, so I wanted to buy a matching set and then I couldn't stop myself. I read the book because I love this series. Obviously, being the 12th book in the series, it's very hard to talk about this book without spoilers, however, I will try. So this is a 2019 release from Gallant and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The Guild Hunter series is about a paranormal romance urban fantasy-ish world where archangels are the ruling class of the world. At any time, 10 archangels around the world, and they each rule different areas. So the Archangel of the United States is Raphael, and he lives in New York. Elena, our main female protagonist, is a guild hunter, and at the start of the books, her job is to hunt down rogue vampires. The vampires live in connection with the archangels and are contracted to archangels for the first 100 years of their lives. And if one of them breaks that contract, the guild hunters are sent out to hunt them down. Lots of things have happened between book 1 and book 12, and in this one, as the title suggests, it is really about a war, and the last 100 or so pages, I'm pretty sure, of this book are really dedicated to New York under siege from their enemies. And in this one, we get to see a lot more of the previous archangels, who begin to awaken, and this disrupts a lot of balance within the world and everyone is forced to deal with it. So it is a really complex world that's got a lot of rules and a lot of things that have happened in it, but I'm really enjoying the series. I'm looking forward to seeing how this eventually wraps up. And can I just say, my favorite angel in this series is one of Raphael's 7, that is Ilium, and I just want him to have his own story because he's a precious character who everyone calls Bluebell because of Elena. And I just want to hear more of his story. We keep getting these tiny little snippets in all of the books, but he hasn't had his own book yet, and that makes me really sad. Then I read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and I wasn't going to read this because I've always enjoyed Leigh Bardugo's books, but the one thing that I can say is that I'm not currently obsessed with them at all, like anyone else. The Grishaverse was fine, Six of Crows duology was fine, and I'll watch the TV show, but I'm not obsessed with the books. I'm not obsessed with the characters. I don't particularly like Kaz Brekker. I know, unpopular opinion. And I was basically going to call it quits on Leigh Bardugo's books just because I don't get what everyone else gets about them. And then I heard that she was writing Ninth House, and I heard that it was more urban fantasy and it was adult, and I thought I'll give it a try because, you know, urban fantasy is more my thing over straight up fantasy. And I'm really pleasantly surprised by this book. So this is a 2019 release, also from Gallant, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It is a story of Alex, who has a bit of a past, and her secret is that she can see ghosts. So she can see them all around her, and she's been able to for a very long time. She gets into a bit of trouble, winds up in hospital, and she is recruited by the head of a secret society at Yale to become a member of the freshman class and to also work for the secret society in monitoring the magical behaviours of 8 secret houses on the campus. There she meets Darlington, who is sort of her supervisor, and we find out pretty quickly that when this story commences that he has disappeared and Alex doesn't quite understand why, but she thinks that it has something to do with the secret societies on the campus. And so this book is a mixture of present day and past stories being interwoven. We get Alex's perspective, we also get Darlington's perspective up to a point. Alex really has to begin to unravel what exactly is going on, where these powers come from. She has to find allies in a place where she doesn't really have any, including a ghost ally, and the whole thing was just really fascinating. It did take a little while to get into. You have to sort of get through the first 100 pages, which is a lot of setup and a lot of sort of world building going on. Also, not being familiar with the US college system or with Yale in particular, wrapping my head around that. It does come with a really convenient map at the front, which was really, really useful, and I appreciate that a lot. But I really enjoyed this, and I would continue this particular series because, yay, urban fantasy is my jam. I will say there are trigger warnings in this book. There is a lot of violent crime, it is quite bloody and gory, and there are also situations that involve rape, whether it's a mention of a past rape or a current day situation, as well as the questionable things that college students might get up to in college. So if anything like that is triggering for you, probably skip this one. Then I read Halfway to the Grave by Janine Frost. This is a 2009 release from HarperCollins, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I forget which series this is, but it is book 1 in an urban fantasy paranormal romance series. It follows the story of Kat, who is a half human, half vampire, and she has been raised by her mother and her grandparents, who are quite God-fearing, and her mother has basically put the fear of God in her around vampires, and so from the age of 16, Kat has gone out and she has learnt how to hunt down vampires and to kill them. No issues there at all, clearly. We meet her and she is, I think, in her 20s, perhaps, and she runs across a much older vampire called Bones, who is basically like Spike from Buffy, but without the questionable consent issues that Spike has. Bones basically kidnaps her and blackmails her into helping him to track down and be the bait for a vampire he has serious issues with. Along the way, he trains her. So this is really sort of that training school montage sort of thing. He trains her how to fight better, how to actually be able to move undetected with the vampires. Eventually, they develop a relationship, and there's a whole lot of other complex things going on, and there's a magical paranormal federal agency involved and all that sort of stuff. But it was a quick and easy read. It was enjoyable. Bones is a delightful character. I like how it took Kat a while to come around to seeing that despite his kidnapping attempts at the beginning, he is actually looking out for her at the same time. So I appreciated that. Next, I read Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. It seems like everyone is currently reading this, but it is a delightful young adult graphic novel that is a 2019 release from Macmillan Children's Books, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It is the story of Dea and Hosea, who have been working at the local pumpkin patch for many, many years while they've been in high school, and every year but in the holiday season they catch up and they work together, and they're quite good friends. But outside of the holiday season and working at the pumpkin patch, they don't actually interact at all. But when they go back, it's like going home. And this is their last night working there. They're about to graduate from high school and go off to college. Dea decides that they should blow off work and they should do things that they've never done before. She wants to go and taste all of the foods around the park, and she wants Hosea to go and talk to the girl that he has been infatuated with for the last few years. So this is a night of misadventure around the park, lots of things going wrong, and also lots of things going right as the two characters really contemplate their friendship and what it actually means. And it was delightful, it was adorable, and I loved it. Then I read Halloween Boo by Sarah Spade. This is a 2018 release from Kindle, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It is a really short Halloween romance novella that is about a ghost falling in love with a human woman. Danny has just moved into an apartment. She begins to think that it is haunted because lots of strange things begin happening around the apartment. We as the reader find out that it is being haunted by a young guy called Zach, who doesn't know how he died, doesn't know his name, doesn't even know why he's in that apartment, but he begins to fall in love with Danny, and he's quite chivalrous. He makes sure he's never sort of involved in anything untoward towards her or breaches her privacy until one night where he can't help himself. And then he discovers that around Halloween he can actually cross over and he can become human again or solid again for a night. And the two of them strike up a super quick romance. I mean, it takes place over a day, really. Let's be real. And there's a whole lot of other things going on, like why is Zach a ghost? Is he a ghost? Etc. And it was super short, it was super quick, and it was just nice to read a Halloween romance book because I've got a few of them on my Kindle and I'm just trying to get through them before Halloween. I also read Growing Up Queer in Australia. This is a collection of essays edited by Benjamin Law. There are stacks of essays in here, so it's kind of hard to talk about all of them or even any particular favorites. They were all just really interesting. This is a 2019 release from Black Ink. Benjamin Law is quite a well-known personality here in Australia, and he has a foreword and he also interviews a few people as well in the centre. So there's transcripts of interviews in here as well as the essays, which I thought was really fascinating. I enjoyed finding out the perspectives of people who have experienced the world in a different way to me. And I think that's all I can really say about this, because it deals with stories from people who identify as queer in all sorts of different ways, their experiences, both positive and negative, and there are both in here. And it is at times joyful and heartbreaking and memorable, but it is a great collection. The entire series of books, the Growing Up Whatever in Australia series, is really, really fantastic. And I think there are 2 that I haven't read yet that I want to find and pick up. So these are a great collection. If you're looking for own voices, real life experiences, are worth checking out. This was also one of my TBR game books, and I have posted my photo on Instagram, so head on over to my Instagram page to check that out if you haven't already. And then finally, I read my favorite book of the week, which may also be my favorite fantasy book of the year, and that is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. This came in a Fairy Loot box, and this is easily my favorite book that I've received in a Fairy Loot box. It is a 2019 release from Harper Teen, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It is a fantasy book about witches and witch hunters, but it actually read more like an urban fantasy, which is probably why I enjoyed it. So even though it's set in a different world, the actual feeling of it was more urban fantasy than high fantasy, if that makes sense. This is also more new adult than it is YA. I'm pretty sure it's been marketed as YA, but I would up that to new adult. There is on-page sex in the book, and while that's fine, it can be in young adult books, I do think it reads older. It is the story of Lou, who is a witch. She's a thief, and she's living in this city with her best friend Coco, who is also a witch of a different type, and the 2 of them are really in hiding from their clans. Coco less so, but she's sort of there for Lou, who really can't go home. She is terribly afraid of her mother, who is quite a sinister figure in this book. Lou is going after a magical ring that will hopefully protect her from her clan and her mother, and then she ends up crossing paths with I'm going to assume it's Chaser or something, who is basically a soldier of the church who hunts down witches, because witches are not well thought of and they're basically burnt as soon as they're found. Apparently practicing witchcraft produces an odor, and it can be smelt by the people around them, which is how they track down witches and then do away with them. She crosses paths with Reed a few times before the main incident happens, and this book has really been touted as an enemies to lovers, marriage of convenience, fantasy romance book. And that's exactly what it is. There is an event that happens that forces them both to be married, and this turns out to actually be quite beneficial to Lou, whereas it actually hurts Reed more than it hurts Reed more than it hurts her. It is a slow look at how they eventually overcome their differences. Lou is constantly on edge that Reed is going to find out that she is a witch, which is problematic for her. But it is filled with so many wonderful characters as well. Coco, the best friend, is amazing. Ansel, who is one of the other acolytes in the church that spends a lot of time with Lou, is just gorgeous and adorable, and I loved him. The whole thing was just a delightfully fun read, and this is quite a big book. It's over 500 pages, and I read it in a sitting because I couldn't put it down. It was a really quick and easy read. So those are the books that I read this week, plus a couple more on top, if you imagine my Kindle, which I forgot to bring into the room with me. In the comments below, let me know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning on reading them. I'd also love to hear what you have been reading over the last 7 days, so do let me know in the comments. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're having a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.